I think I've found the best hidden gem on Switch in my entire time of doing this series, so do stick around to the hidden gem, which is always at the end of the main section before we have a look at some cheap Saveloys. But man, you wouldn't think there were that many hidden gems still to find, would you? Now, if you want to save yourself some money, you can do so over at switchup.gg. You get 5% more and we get a tiny little kickback from Nintendo. That will just come to you instantly as cashback. Well, there you go. This is the week we got the Switch 2 announcement. We know it's backwards compatible. We might as well add a few games to our backlog. Now, if you missed it, I finally finished Xenoblade 3. My goodness, it only took me 3 years, literally, but man, was it a good time. First things first, congrats to the winner of the free game this week. Your name's on the screen. Ping us an email and we'll sort you out. What are the best games on sale this week? And a load of random ramblings that will probably come out of my mouth. Well, my name's Mark Walker. Welcome back to SwitchUp. Now, let's find out. Kicking off then, we've got one of my favourite games on Switch. It's A Space for the Unbound. This one comes from Chorus Worldwide, I'm pretty sure, but it was developed by Mojican Studio, who are an Indonesian game dev, and it's very apparent during this adventure that that's the case. The whole game is set within 90s rural Indonesia, and it's brilliant, very bizarre, has some otherworldly aspects to it, and a very big fixation actually on cats. But you play as Atma, who discovers they have some supernatural powers, the ability to essentially jump into people's psyche to figure out what's driving them. And if you help them within that place, you can then change the circumstances of their life and also sometimes get them to help you out in different ways. It's one of those slice of life games as well. It incorporates the more mundane elements to give it that sense that you've almost stepped into the shoes of someone else. In my opinion, this is one of the most underrated games we've got on Switch. It's brilliant. I have a full review of it if you want to go check it out, and there is a physical as well, which I went out and purchased because I liked it so much. You can either grab that on Amazon, or I think there's a Play Asia version as well. We've got a link for that actually down in the description. But this is 45% off, £9.89. That's the cheapest it's ever been, and this sale is available in all regions. For context, this one hasn't been on sale for quite a number of months, so if you're interested, not only is it its cheapest, it doesn't go on sale very often. A Space for the Unbound, cracking game. The Outstanding Children of Mortar from 11-Bit Studios is 80% off. This has a soundtrack that is top drawer. Glen's always using it for his videos. I would say go for the complete edition of this because that's down to its cheapest ever price. At least in the US. If you're in the UK, you'll have to go for the base edition. But it's essentially an action RPG, and in some ways it feels quite old school in that regard. It's like real-time hack and slash style combat. You've got 7 different playable characters though from this family, and they gradually unlock throughout the game. But it does also have local co-op, which is something you don't always see in these types of games. Different characters have different skills, and they added in a separate mode called Family Trials, which essentially turns the game into Hades. But the core experience is really, really nice. For many, this was people's Game of the Year back in 2021 when it came out. It still holds up to this day, and if for some reason you haven't picked it up yet, well, 80% off is the best it's ever been. CHasm: The Rift is an old school first-person shooter, which is down to its cheapest at £4.49. Bit of a bargain, that one. It's filled with mutated abominations. It has that classic like 90s style level layout where you can legit get yourself not lost, but you can get a bit stuck because you can't find where to go next. That's blatantly me confessing that the first level of this one I completely got lost and stuck. But the core part of it, that shooting, is just great. This will be for fans predominantly, I think, of the original release. I think compared to some other FPS games, it might feel a little clunky to some. But the original was created by a single programmer back in '97, I think it's a Ukrainian, and it has a very unique atmosphere. This version obviously has some visual improvements as it is a remaster, including things like shadows and lighting. It's a little slice of first-person shooter history, and at 75% off. A good recommendation, I think. That sale goes on until February the 5th.
In order to transport our dimension.
Dead Cells, well, the Return to Castlevania DLC, which has an entire new chapter essentially with new characters, a new area, and that Castlevania theme. Well, that's 50% off at the moment. I actually reviewed this as a standalone, so you can go check out that review if you're interested. But you can really see that they're fans of Castlevania. Everything about it, from the sound effects to the locations, the enemies that you fight. It also includes 14 new weapons. It's perfect. The real kicker is the soundtrack. Man, does it have some great tunes. And just having that new storyline and a bunch of new outfits, for me it was more than enough reason to get back into Dead Cells, which is a fast-paced action roguelite that has different weapon categories, and you kind of branch out into those areas. And you choose where you go between the stages to eventually progress towards the end and defeat the final bosses. If you've not played Dead Cells before, you can pick up the game on sale very often. And I'm sure from the comments below this video, you'll see a few recommendations down there. But the Return to Castlevania DLC, that's the cheapest it's been. That goes on until January the 23rd. It's quite interesting that Cinemora X is on sale. I downloaded like 15 shoot 'em ups the other day. Basically, Glen and I have started playing shmups on our Friday gaming nights, and Cinemora X was one of our options. It's published by Handed Games and it's developed by, is it Digital Reality? Maybe Grasshopper Manufacturer as a collaboration. But it's a side-scrolling shmup and it does look fantastic. It has that 3D art style, a ton of different bosses, the classic bullet hell moments that you'd expect, and about 50 different weapon combos. It's not as good in my opinion as some of the vertical shmups that we've got on Switch, but for £3.79, that is a lovely little bargain. Cracking game. That sale goes on until January the 30th. Moonlighter, I think, has one of the best soundtracks of all time. You might not have seen, but Moonlighter 2 is it out already on other platforms, or certainly very shortly? It's 90% off, I think, probably to celebrate and bring hype back to the name. But in this one, you run your own little shop in a small, quaint town, and you head out into the dungeons at night time to go and get a bunch of loot that you can then sell during the daytime. When you open your shop, a series of different customers come in. Sometimes you'll get like a tea leaf pop up and try and steal something. You have to go grab them. People's main issue with this one is just the difficulty. Some of the stages are brutally tough. It can be a little unforgiving in that regard, but I still absolutely loved it. It just hooked me. The soundtrack, I was like, oh my goodness. I can just sit and listen to this game. I don't even need to play it. But that won't be the case for everyone, so do go check out a few reviews. For me, 90% off for this absolute banger is just a win. I am pleased to see Cat Quest 3 coming down in price. The reason being, I know not that many people have actually played it, and it's by far the best in the series. This one has a pirate theme. If you put pirates with anything, it's better. I'm sure that is like a law. I think it has to be. And there's a semi-open world here as well, where you can go solo or you can get a friend in drop-in, drop-out co-op. And it has almost more of a feeling of something like Diablo in some ways. You fight in like dungeon style areas and you can take on like high seas combat and all of that. But there's like a looter mechanic where people drop different types of gear. So you're always looking for that new thing that you're going to equip to your character, and it will make a big difference. One of them will be massively slow, but do ridiculous damage. And the combat as well has that ebb and flow, more like, and I'm loath to say it, but a bit more like a Souls game. You know, you have to roll away from damage, go in there, do a few strikes, be really careful because it's quite punishing as well. It has a level system whereby you can go into an area that's massively overpowered for you and you will get dominated. Cat Quest 3, 30% off. Highly recommend this one. I think it's great. We've got a couple of hidden gems today. The first of them is a game called Elsie. This is a Mega Man inspired roguelite with a hub area. The hub is where you get new shops, you get new places to purchase gear, you get your challenges, your tasks. We've seen it done very well in many games, and it's a mechanic that works well for a roguelite, whether it's your house in the Children of Morta or your base in the TMNT, Shredders or Splinter Fate, that one. Having that constant progression just works well. And Elsie was just a surprise to me. It was one of those, well, there's not much coming out, that looks interesting, let's do a review of it. And it ended up really scratching that Mega Man itch for me. Now, sadly, this is US regions only, so sorry if you just got hyped up and then went, oh. but it is its cheapest, 40% off. The thing that really stood out for me with it though was the movement. The controller movement are so tight. It describes itself as a bullet hell ballet. I don't know about that, but I will say it's very precise. There is a storyline here as well about an ancient core and a guardian and all this malarkey that I tended to just ignore. But if story is a big part of your enjoyment, just know that it is in there, and the character that, like herself, is quite interesting. That sale goes on until January the 27th. The penultimate game then isn't even out yet. And I know I shouldn't really do this, but I have played it and it's exceptional. Tales of Iron 2, Whiskers of Winter. I played it during Gamescom, was chatting to the developer as well, and he was such a sound bloke. I was like, this guy is just normal. You know when you like meet someone and you're like, hang on, they clearly don't think a great deal of themselves. They're just trying their best and they're creating something decent. Like that is literally what I felt like. I was like, this guy's, yeah, this is quality. And the improvements he's made to the game, I don't know how much I'm allowed to say. I mean, it was a public demo, so I probably can. It has so much more of a feeling of like place, but it's like more rugged than the previous one. Start out in this really like Arctic wintry kingdom. There's like a castle. You fight this quite grotesque monster early on, but it's £17.99 with a 20% discount at launch, which is a great price. Like if it was that after launch, I'd be saying pick it up. So if you're interested, the pre-order page is now live, and that's until its release on the 29th of January.
Is the hour to unite metal and magic, bolster steel with sorcery, and
Okay, I bigged up the hidden gem, didn't I, this week? I was like, I think I found something you will never have heard of. I definitely hadn't. And when you find a hidden gem, it's rare that it's like very good. I thought it was going to be okay. It's called Leica Aged Through Blood. Before I tell you what it is, just in your head think, all right, what's that going to be? Well, it is a self-described Motorvania. It's a Metroidvania where you're on a motorbike, but look at that art style. It has that beautiful hand-painted post-apocalyptic style. And here are some of the mechanics, because Glen and I were playing this on Friday. You can block bullets by tilting your bike when you do jumps. You can flip in the air to reload your weapons. If you do a backflip, it recharges like your pistol. If you do like a front flip, you've got this deflection move that you can do. And then you've got this massive map that gradually opens up. You've got boss fights in there. We were just playing it, just dumbstruck, like, where the hell has this game been? I'm a huge Metroidvania fan. I'd never heard of it. It's so good. Like, I was like, how are they going to do bosses here? Like the first boss, you do like back flips up his one of those like plow things at the front, like a snow plow, and then you're shooting it from above, but still trying to like dodge the bullets. It's quality. Really, really surprised. Western-inspired Motorvania with a post-apocalyptic theme and that art style. Yes, please. I've been thoroughly enjoying it. So then that takes us onto our Saveloy selection. And in the interest of giving you more Saveloys, which are the games that are very cheap, but also very tasty, like your Fed Cooks and your Saveloys, or whatever your local dish is, I'm gonna reel through these montage style with a nice little piece of my favorite music. All right, let's see what we've got. So that's it for this week. A lovely one, I think. Some nice little gems in there. Sorry to the backlog, but at least we know all of these will run on the Nintendo Switch 2. Thanks to our Patreons, our members, all of you that enjoy the content. Use SwitchUp.gg to buy your eShop credit if you fancy supporting us and getting yourself 5% in cashback. To our Patreons, our members, nice one. For all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch Up. Cheers, guys. See ya!